saying that would create some kind of distortion like what he has seen over in America. So he was aware of the danger there, but he wouldn't commit to telling.
They will set up multiple fake online accounts. You would have to go on.
You're doing everything you can to make ends meet, but bills are through the roof.
And that's why if re-elected, National will make further changes to KiwiSaver so that Kiwis...
Our next Labor government will cap public transport fares.
Hi, what do you guys think of the new titles?
That was cool. I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah. Well done.
I was like, it's me.
I was like, are they accidentally playing something? Like, is this? Oh no! But then it kept.
No, I actually built it on Canva, which I don't like using for that kind of thing. But it's real. The clips were it did fine. It did fine. Because we have a guest waiting in the waiting room, and he's only here for a very limited amount of time. I'm going to bring Ricardo in now, and then we'll do the housekeeping stuff afterwards. So, yes. Good evening, Ricardo. How are you doing?
Yeah, good. Thank you. How are you?
Yeah.
Hey, brother.
Yeah. Facing the gauntlet with everybody here because we want to know more about the Green Party tax policy.
We're not sure when he's left.
The rest of us do.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys.
And I'm just having some technical issues. Okay, there we go.
Real life text lecture.
Okay. Everybody is having
Kia ora.
issues
Thanks for
tonight.
having me.
You blame National?
All right.
Yeah. So give us the rundown on today's announcement. What was the highlight for you? What are the big sales pitches that you guys are putting out there about the new green tax policy announcement? And are you kind of happy that it overshadowed whatever the hell it was Chris Luxon was doing?
Have we got Paul? Have we got Ricardo? I think we're still...
I don't think he can hear us.
Okay.
No, I think it's just cutting off ever so slightly. And I'm just trying to figure out what that is because I'm not getting anything on my end. But I did catch enough. And can I just get a thumbs up that you can hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. In that case, I will get onto it. Look, basically what we propose today is our vision to make sure that the wealthy few pay their fair share. And it's about rebalancing the tax system to one that actually taxes wealth more rather than work. And so it includes a range of interventions, including basically creating a tax-free threshold for the first $10,000 that you earned, as well as making sure that the largest corporations pay a bit of a higher corporate tax rate. And this is simply reversing the changes that the previous national government actually in 2008 removed. And also what we're proposing here is taxes on the 4 big overseas banks that will bring revenue so that we can fund public services. And we're also proposing a tax on big tech companies who right now are taking their profits offshore and are also causing harm on our society through their lack of action on, for example, regulating the algorithm. So we think that this is simply a way of ensuring that we can rebuild the country, that we have enough revenue to put back into our public healthcare system, and more than anything else, actually make life more affordable for everyday people. Under our plan, 96% of people will pay the same or less tax, and the wealth tax will not affect over 99% of the population. And so that's really important for people to understand that most people do not have $10 million worth of wealth, debt-free. And so we're really talking about the super, super rich when it comes to our tax proposals.
What's been the feedback that you've had so far?
Yeah, look, I was phone banking earlier this afternoon and talking to voters across the Mount Albert and Auckland Central electorates. And the feedback has been quite positive. I think most people can understand that the wealthy few are not paying their fair share of tax right now. But more than anything, that right now the tax system is not fair. That if you're an everyday worker, you're actually paying far more tax than the likes of Peter Thiel and others who can get away with hiding their money in assets. And so the feedback has been positive. It's been good to be able to clarify, for example, where the family home is affected, which we've been able to make it clear to people that it isn't. And I think the key thing here will be for us to make it really clear to voters that if they want this to be part of the policy suite of a next government, that the only way to get that across the line is through a stronger Green Party come this election, so that we can have a stronger negotiating hand.
Anybody else got questions? Jump on in.
Yeah, so I feel like New Zealand is in something of a unique position compared to the rest of the world, and that we are the country that it seems, you mentioned Peter Thiel before, we're the country that seems to attract all these billionaires and tech entrepreneurs, basically using our country as one big underground bunker because they're all doomsday cultists. I feel like you mentioned something just now, hiding their money in assets, which they most certainly do. If you are part of that ultra wealthy in New Zealand, that top 4% who will find themselves paying higher tax, what would you say to them when they kind of scream foul about the mega rich who just hide all of their wealth and assets? Because like in terms of actual income they're netting, most of what they have is in those assets. What would you say to them?
That's right. And what I would say is that we're currently being ripped off, right? And these billionaires that are hiding their wealth and assets are not necessarily producing anything by doing so. They're just basically accumulating wealth at obscene levels. And what we are saying here is pretty simple. It's that the game's over, that we can have a different tax system that actually benefits most everyday people, while the billionaires may cry foul and may claim that they're going to be taking their wealth offshore. Well, surprise, you can't actually take expensive homes offshore, right? You can't actually take properties offshore. What will they end up doing potentially? What, putting them on the market? Great. That means that actually other people can actually benefit from that. And I think this is really important, that we've seen in other jurisdictions that have implemented these sort of taxes and progressive policies, is that the mega rich will continue crying foul whenever these policies are being proposed. And even, in Sorenamdani's New York, we've seen how the mega rich have organized really effectively to push back against policies that have now proven not just to be extremely popular, but that have actually led to an improvement in people's lives.
So are you telling me that these rich people who have generally made their money off the backs of workers and the people that they're treating down on have kind of unionized, like joined together in a union of some kind to push their power together?
Well, I wouldn't call it a union, right? But what I would say is that there is an organized effort to push back against a fair tax system. And we do see the mega rich often organizing and using their resources to push back against these ideas, both by threatening to take their wealth offshore, but also just simply by peddling a narrative that this will make our country poor. And what I would say to that is that this country is the richest it's been. We have more wealth as a country that we've ever had before, and yet we've also got a country that is experiencing record homelessness, where people are unable to access basic healthcare. And if these billionaires were genuinely creating the thousands and thousands of jobs that they tell us that they do, why is it then that we're experiencing also extremely high levels of unemployment, the ones that we have not seen in a generation? And so I think this tells us that we need to rebuild a country to one that actually prioritizes the collective well-being. And I am ready, and I'm sure Chloe and Marama are against the pushback from the billionaires that will be organizing to keep the status quo in place despite it benefiting them.
Can I jump in?
Oh, sorry, you go for it, Jordan.
You mentioned that they're ready for the pushback, and I'm curious because you will have obviously thought about the messaging of this policy and whatnot. What I find often is that when it comes to like this policy here or Labour's CGT, we're coming up against individuals who really are highly unlikely that it is that they're ever going to make it that $10 million, that hit that $10 million mark where this is going to affect them. But why do you think it has been so, or why do you think it has been so effective, the messaging that it is going to affect them? There just seems to be a lot of people that don't understand that they are nowhere near that mark with this type of thing is going to affect them, yet they still push back as if they are a millionaire as well.
Yeah, look, I think for us in the Greens, the work for us to do is actually less to convince people that a wealth tax is a good thing. I mean, polls have already shown us that in last election, there was a poll that showed, I think it was over 65% of people supporting a wealth tax to pay for something like free dental. The support is there. But now what we need to do as the Greens is to build a people-powered movement, to get out there and have everyday conversations with people, to talk to people on the phones, to people at the door, and actually build those relationships on the ground. And I think what we've seen overseas as well, where there's been success from progressive campaigns, it hasn't been campaigns that have been solely fought on social media, for example, on media platforms. It's been through actually building those relationships in the ground. And like I said, this is why today, as part of our announcement, we had a day of action where we were actually just reaching out to everyday people and having conversations with them. Even just hearing out what people are concerned about is a much more effective way of actually building that trust and building those relationships. But, we can't do it alone. We're up against the political parties and the corporations that are pouring millions of dollars into fighting against these sort of policies, and parties from the government that are extremely well resourced. And so for me, it's less about, I guess, the fight on the messaging itself, but more a fight of actually building those connections at a human level.
You talked about looking into regulating the algorithm, which interested me because that might impact us. Is that something you were looking at specifically for children or something for the wider public? Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, I was referencing more the fact that, what I was mentioning is that big tech companies right now are causing harm. They're taking their profits offshore. And I think the regulatory components of addressing that, I think, sit separately to our tax proposals. But for example, we've long said that holding big tech companies and those big tech companies making themselves responsible for the harm that it causes is a much more effective lever than, say, for example, banning social media for under 16s. And so that's where we would be heading. But for us, what we've made it extremely clear is that big tech companies are part of the problem. They're companies that benefit massively from the status quo, and in many cases take the money offshore. And we think that if they're going to be raking in millions and millions of dollars, that they should actually be contributing to building a country where everybody can have good lives. But yeah, absolutely, in terms of regulating big tech companies, there's more work to be done that absolutely needs to be done as, beyond the conversation that I think hasn't been very helpful on just banning social media for young people, which I don't think is actually the solution that I think addresses the real problem here.
You spoke before, Ricardo, about the popularity of the wealth tax and it being used in the last election to potentially pay for free dental care. I have found that across the board with the Green Party. It seems that when you go through all of your policy positions, they align very much so with the rank and file voter in this country. What do you, yet you guys are still a minor party, what do you attribute that to? If it was policy that won every election, you guys should have had the reins of power for decades by now.
Because it's not policy itself alone that actually wins the election, right? It's actually those human connections. And we've seen how movements, and I know that I've quoted Zohran Mamdani's campaign before, but he started from a really small base with really low polling, yet extremely popular policies. But again, like the fight here is to actually build a people-powered movement, to build a mass base of volunteers that we can go out, door knock, phone bank, and actually connect to people at a human level. Often what I find when I'm out door knocking is that most people are busy going on with their lives and probably not thinking about policies and the election even to the degree that the five of us are here. And the opportunity that we have, though, is to make that connection, to actually make sure that people feel heard, that they feel validated, that they feel understood, and that we don't just simply brush them off because perhaps they don't fully agree with us. I often, when I talk to voters and I say that I'm a socialist, I actually often say that it is because I believe in the dignity of all people. And for me, I don't need to agree with every single other policy position a voter has. All I have to do is to seek that agreement that we see the dignity in each other. And I think we can only do that through having conversations, and we can only have those conversations by actually having enough volunteers on the ground. So for anyone listening who wants to change the government and is banging their heads about how popular policies don't result in higher polling, my invitation is to get involved in the campaign, because that's the only way that we can bring about change.
You mentioned before, and you said that you outright refer to yourself as a socialist to voters. There was a time in this country where that would have been political suicide, yet here you are freely announcing it. And do you feel like it's less of a dirty word in perhaps a post-Bernie, post-Zora Mamdani era, at least among politicians?
Potentially, but I think what people can see is that the status quo and the current economic system has not worked, or if anything, it's probably working as intended, which it has been to actually allow those very same mega corporates that we are proposing to tax more to rip us all off. And like I said, if the system was working as intended, us being the richest we've ever seen would have resulted in more people being housed, less people being homeless, and people accessing healthcare. And I think when we talk about ideas like socialism, like I said, it boils down to seeing the dignity in each other and the collective responsibility we have to each other. I don't think the fight to paint these words as some sort of scapegoat will continue working, because people can see that these are the very same players that want to keep the broken economic system as it is. But I think, at the end of the day, we won't win campaigns by just having these labels and wearing them proudly. We win the campaigns, like I said, by working with each other. And, I say this as somebody who, prior to being an MP, used to serve and organize with people who used to belong to the likes of Destiny Church. And I was proud to serve and work with people on the benefit and people who were in state housing who belonged to groups that were diametrically opposed to me. But, I was able to form those human connections on a daily basis in Auckland Action Against Poverty. And that taught me that that's the pathway, in my view. And I'm not, of course, claiming that it's going to happen overnight. We've got to build a huge movement, but that is ultimately the way to do it.
All right. I know we've only got you for a couple more minutes, so I'm going to jump in here and ask you a couple of questions that have come through from the chat. This one from Gemini Queen Annika Sorensen wants to know what your thoughts are on National Compulsory KiwiSaver, which for some reason seems to have hit the headlines today.
Yeah, look, this is something that we're going to be forming our position on shortly. But what I would say to it right now is that I think the challenge that I have with the current position from the National Party is that without addressing the reality that if you're a low-income worker and you're facing high rents and you're facing, for example, lack of access to healthcare, accessing the KiwiSaver could put someone in a position where they may not be able to afford some basic essentials, right? So I think making KiwiSaver compulsory works when you do have a safety net, affordable housing, decent jobs, right? Because I think otherwise, if you're a minimum wage worker, unfortunately, while KiwiSaver is a great initiative, I know many who are having to make the hard decision of withdrawing and not entering that scheme simply for trying to make ends meet. And I think this is why we've got to fix the other fundamentals in order to make compulsory KiwiSaver work as intended. I think it's a policy that has merit, but I think implementing it without addressing affordability for our poorest could lead to people actually not having what they need to survive in the now. And I think those people that can survive in the now struggle to see themselves having a KiwiSaver to tap into when they turn 65.
All right. And finally, this one here from Tane wanting to know what your thoughts are on compulsory voting like Australia and reversing the coalition of chaos's attempts to suppress voter participation.
On the latter, we've been really clear that we would fight to repeal those changes. And this is why we're also looking at door-knocking efforts. We've been pushing really hard to make sure that people are able to have their enrollment details up to date, and that, we're not just talking to people about their concerns, but checking that their enrollment details are right. On compulsory voting, I would say that, to be honest, we've got to build a system that people have trust in, right? And we've got to build a system that people want to actively participate in. And in my view, this is why civic education in schools and a more participatory democracy are answers to actually increasing voter turnout. I think simply making it compulsory without actually putting in the means for people to have the education, for example, to know how our political system works, or, for example, to have better avenues for citizenship participation in our democracy, doesn't really address the realities of a broken democratic system. And this is why in Australia, despite them having compulsory voting, you're seeing the likes of One Nation skyrocket in the polls, and it's not the antithesis, we think, against the far right surging, as we've seen in other democracies, including in Australia.
And finally, since I see what the time is, how do we find more about this tax policy? Where can we get the information online?
Thank you. Yeah, you can go to greens.org.nz. It should be on the main platform. All the information is there. And if you're concerned that this tax policy may affect you negatively, well, either congratulations for having $10 million worth of wealth, or if you have genuine concerns that you're confused about, who it captures, just go to our website, brush up on the details. But I can assure you, like I said, that over 99% of New Zealand people won't be affected by the wealth tax. 96% of people will pay either the same or less tax under our proposal.
Perfect. Ricardo, thank you very much. Anybody got anything else they want to sign off with?
My takeaway from that is that the position of the Green Party is that it's not right versus left, it's up versus down. Would you agree with that sentiment, Ricardo?
I think it's always been that way. That's right.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us, Ricardo.
Kia ora.
So appreciate it.
Thanks, Kia ora.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
So now do you guys feel more informed about the tax policy?
I do, because I totally missed so much of it today. But that was that was a really nice and in-depth, and also really good questions in the chat and comments going off in here.
I was low-key fangirling that whole time because I love watching Parliament TV. It's my favorite show, and Ricardo's so good in there. Like, he doesn't stutter. He's like, I've got you. He's just so good. I watched him against him v. Louise Upston. It was great.
Very matter of fact, he's good.
He's had a few appearances on Ryan Bridge, and I'll be honest, because you know how Ryan Bridge is whenever he has a Green MP on, and I'm always kind of like, oh no. But Ricardo really holds his own every time. Eats and leaves no crumbs. And so, it was a real pleasure to hear from him. Really good interview. Really good questions from the chat. We have the smartest viewers, eh? I really, truly believe that. We have the smartest, most well-informed viewership in whatever this.
If they hit that like button, that makes them 200% more attractive. Just saying. Just saying. I should probably do some housekeeping. Thinking about now that Ricardo is ducked off to his next thing. So, of course, we are on the BHN network at the moment, and you can purchase BHN merch through BHN's shop.nz. You won't get it straight away because Pat's currently in Australia. So if you order something, expect a little bit of a delay, but it's not Christmas, so it should be fine. There's clearly a whole bunch of stuff. We need to ask them about how we get merch on here.
I want my face drawn.
Yeah. We need to get some collective merch on here, but there's
would
obviously
you wear
a whole
your
bunch
own face?
Yeah.
100%.
I would. I'll wear Breeze.
See, the main four get their pictures on there, but we haven't yet.
Not yet.
But there's plenty of options there. It's a great way of supporting independent media as well, and making sure that the funds are there to put on shows like this and BHN during the week. Of course, Partai with the Pollies and Dr. Gary Pienda's show and all the rest of it. So, if you get a chance, check out the store. But don't expect orders straight away because, Pat needs a holiday. I think we all need a holiday, actually. I'm really looking forward to November 8th.
November 8th. Oh, man. It's really hard to think about it, eh?
I hope we're partying.
Did anybody catch the new national ad? It was their kind of big campaign ad that they just dropped today.
Is that the less tax dancing one? No.
No. So it was exceptional. It felt like it was just the social media gods just smiled on me today when they posted that ad. It was here you go, Sean. You're welcome. That's what it felt like. It was the typical kind of like Labour scaremongering kind of ram raid nonsense, relitigating the COVID stuff. But it wasn't that part that was like so like. If there was one criticism you would have of Christopher Luxon to like the normie voter, it would be that he is inauthentic, right? That maybe disingenuous, that he feels overly rehearsed. The opening shot of the commercial, I think they were trying to kind of be like, I don't know, like it kind of, MTV behind the scenes kind of energy where it's like, oh yeah, we're going to show him rehearsing his lines. They literally show like the one criticism, they thought it was a good idea to take the guy who the one criticism we have of them, but the main criticism we have of him is that he is overly rehearsed and disingenuous, and you open your commercial with showing him reading out lines. Like you could not have teed people like me up any better. I truly believe that that his social media team must just hate him.
I actually genuinely think that sometimes. I'm sure they don't. I mean, they mustn't. Well, I don't know. Maybe they do. But they do make these choices every now and then. Yeah. They do make these choices every now and then. I'm like, do you not like them? I think that's the same with the scripting as well. Whenever like Erica has there was a thing that annoyed me ages ago. Was that I think they've kind of changed it, but I noticed that whenever it was Erica, Louise, or Nicola doing a piece to Cam, whoever wrote the script would write it in a way that their position was always that they were like clueless. Remember, like Erica's thing was like, what does an A even mean? What does an E even mean? And then Nicola's one is like, supermarkets, who cares about the big sign? But whenever they write a script for a male MP, it's more like, this is the knowledge that I know. Now you know it. They've kind of changed it recently, but they still wrote all of their female MPs really poorly in the scripting.
Yeah,
it's almost kind of like written by young mans.
Well, I'm not massively surprised, but yeah, it's frustrating. I don't even like Nicola and Erica, but they deserve to be written. They do have degrees. Like they are smart people.
Yeah. He said begrudgingly, they are smart people.
I didn't like saying it. They do have degrees. We have to give them credit.
Erica is really good at playing the recorder.
That's true. That was such a bizarre video that she chose to
played the recorder more than she's listened to teachers this year.
Yeah. As soon as I saw that video with her playing the recorder, I'm just like, surely she knows this is going to be memed. This is going to be cropped. It's there's no way this makes her look good in the long run. It's just going to be a tool for ridicule.
The right are not very clued up on like memes as such or like pop culture in general. So I think that's why they do keep making perfect content for people, content creators on the left. They do keep making these faux pas because they're not that clued in. I think there was a clip recently of David Seymour talking about his favorite meme and he couldn't even like name it. He was like trying to describe it to the interviewer. They just don't. They're super out of touch people.
And the interviewer was a kid as well.
That's right. Did you see the interview with I think it's Kia Kids? They're little kids doing a great job interviewing all of the MPs. But they recently interviewed Shane Jones, and they had questions of they should have vetted this. They asked him about climate change, and Shane refused to admit that it was real, and instead went down a path of telling the kids that what's important is we keep business alive and small businesses, and I was like, don't let Shane talk about science to kids. He doesn't know.
I am like such an advocate for not involving kids in politics. Like I actually follow that page, but I think it's weird. Like they shouldn't be part of these conversations. But
don't talk.
I think it is important though that for kids as they get older to understand who is the prime minister. What the role of the position is, and why it's important. When you're a grown-up, you get to have your say in this kind of thing. But sitting down and going, Shane Jones, do you believe in climate change? It's not going to get a straight answer.
I do like when we do the event stuff, though. So the Kia Kids, and there's like another one that they go to like Waitangi Day, and they ask the MPs about the event. I think that's a lot better That's a way better way of doing it, and you get some really, really beautiful stuff out of those things. I love all the Waitangi Day coverage. It's so warm, and it's such a good thing.
Mm-hmm. Unless Luxon's talking, then it's just funny.
If the likes of Tova O'Brien or Jack Tang wanted to get push a kid forward and kind of Trojan horse a few of their questions for the Prime Minister, I wouldn't think that was a bad idea.
They did that in the UK. I'm not sure if you've seen that clip with Nigel Farage. They got that girl and her. So Nigel Farage was like, hello, being all nice and childlike to this girl who was being welcomed onto the show. But the girl was actually quite politically informed. And I think, she got to ask any question. And I think her first question was like, why do you hate immigrants? And then everyone was like, oh, well, whoa. And they're trying to change the subject. And I was like, nice. Good parenting. Well done.
And then, and that's what forced Ruby Love Smith to come to New Zealand.
That's the origin story.
Yeah, that's her origin story.
She's great.
Right. I've got a super chat here as well that I should have mentioned before, because Gold does this on all of these streams. 139 days until we get to Ditch the Pricks in 26. Some key dates in case people aren't aware of it. You've got till August the 7th to decide which role you're going to be on if you're considering the Māori role versus the general role. You have to be enrolled by October the 4th if you want to guarantee you're going to get an easy vote card before the election, so you can just take that in, sort things out. But you've got it until October the 25th to be enrolled to go and be able to cast a special ballot during that pre-election period. If you turn 18 in that time, but you want to make sure you're enrolled beforehand, do that. Enroll before that cutoff date so you can just walk in on your birthday and vote if you're in that period. Last day of polling is the 7th of November, 7 o'clock at night. If you're in line at that time, stay in line because they can't kick you out. We'll get preliminary results that night, and then the 27th of November, we'll get the final results, which coincidentally is about the same amount of time as it took in 2023 for them to get us the final results. So not faster after all.
Cool.
I have two questions for the chat. Number one is, do people, because we need to constantly check that we're not in our own bubbles here. Do people feel like New Zealanders understand that they have to enroll by the 25th of October? In my circle, obviously they do, but does the average New Zealander know? I know typically from polling, people don't pay attention really to politics until July, and we're not even there yet. So I'm very aware that a lot of what I've been talking about over the last 2 years will have missed a majority of New Zealanders, and we'll probably start hitting them in July. So do people think that enough people know about that? And second of all, obviously everybody in the chat follow us for. Are there things that we've been doing that you would like to see more of? Because I know we've all been trying different things in order of getting messages out there. I've been trying to juxtapose lately Christopher Luxon's whole thing about calling the previous government big spenders with the fact that his own government currently spends all their money on themselves. I feel like that's been quite helpful for people just to get that. So yeah, those two questions, if we can see how people feel about that.
I was at the train station the other day and I was sitting down and 3 different people came up to me, which was like crazy. It was the most normally people come up to me at petitions and stuff, but this was just me just sitting at the train station, And this young girl came up to me, she's 20, and she told me that she was going to vote for the first time. And I was like, wow, that's amazing. And she mentioned she actually named, I think it was a few of you guys, but she didn't know your names. She was like, I watched this other guy, So I do think we are reaching those young people. I think I'm just not sure if the specifics of things are getting through.
Mm-hmm.
They probably realize that something's changed, but what,
Mm.
Yeah. So I had a similar experience at the supermarket the other day. I didn't recognize him, but he was an old student, and he was in his late 20s, and it made me feel old. But he kind of just gave me a couple of kind of encouraging words, and I did. And he kind of said, oh, what can I do to support you? And I said, him kind of being in that young male demographic, which is very overpopulated in terms of not showing up to vote, I said, what you can do for me is go to your 5 closest friends, get them enrolled right now. And he himself, who is kind of dialed in with all of us, he didn't know that he had to be enrolled 10 days before the election. And he kind of went, oh, so I can't just show up on the day. That's what I've always done. And so, yeah, it is not, it needs, I think this is going to be, and I've mentioned it here on the show before, that I do think this is going to be a big news story come election day. Potentially, if we see the left coalition lose by a, lose in a close race, which I hope they're not going to lose, but if they do lose, it is going to be close. I think it's not unreasonable to say that the National Coalition doing away with same-day enrollment was a big factor there. And I would I don't think I'd be hyperbolic in saying that would constitute almost a theft of the election. That's what I would kind of, put out to people. So it's really, really important. Unless, I think we might have a national crisis. We could potentially have a national crisis come election day. So it's vitally important that we have very, very high voter turnout, guys.
Yeah.
So I'm running a poll here. If people want to vote in the poll, I learned about this on Thursday. Thursday when I was on BHN with Ems. I didn't even know we could do this. People just need to type the corresponding number into the chat, and that's how they vote on the poll. So super, super easy. We're getting some interesting comments coming through on it as well. This one from Julian. We helped a guy enroll online yesterday at the Palmy Soup in the Square Greens event. We've held an enrollment. We're asking every young person about being enrolled and talking to them about why it's important. It's like legend.
I've noticed a really good approach is, have you moved house? Because heaps of people have. Everyone moves all the time.
Yeah.
My 20-year-old daughter is enrolled and has all her friends enrolled ready to vote. As she is at uni studying politics, her friends all ask her for advice, so that makes it easier for her to get her friends involved.
I had a question the other.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Jordan.
I just had a question the other day. Somebody asked me if their kid can vote their birthday. They turn 18. They turn 18 on the day of voting. And so they asked if their kid can enroll now. The answer is yes. You can enroll now, and then you will automatically be on the enrollment ready on voting day if you happen to be celebrating your birthday on the 7th.
Perfect. We've got, God, I hope so. I do my best to inform or share on my feed, but there's a fine line to annoyance, and it went off when I shared on a community group. Overall, the outcome was good. People get so polarized on policy that they can't see the wood for the trees.
Yeah. And there's still lots of people I encounter that are like, well, none of the parties are absolutely 100% perfect for what I want, so I feel like I don't want to vote. I've had those guys a lot. And it's like, mate, you just... Fucking hell, come on.
Movements are so big. I meet so many different people within the Labour Party, and they are all we don't agree on everything. That's never the thing. It's that's not how, you're not meant to just agree on every single thing. That's not how a movement works. It's just that how you approach things and stuff is probably similar. I found that really interesting, accepting that.
I love this comment. My husband asks everyone he sees, even had voting papers sent to him so he could hand them out. Proactive.
Oh, I want to do this.
I love your husband.
I have enrollment papers in my car. I was at a trade fair actually a couple of months ago, and they had the Electoral Commission there, just give me the enrollment thing. So I've always got something in my car. So if I'm at an event, if somebody asks, I can just hand it to them if they don't have access to the internet.
One thing I thought about doing as legally as I can was stickers are so easy to print, and I was just like, why I'm sure we could get a QR code to the enrollment site and just put it on a bunch of stickers and then put a sticker when you're around in public. Surely that's fine.
I have had this thought, and this is kind of me being shrewd politically. So they have basically outlawed, for lack of a better word, hangi at marae to kind of dissuade Māori voters from enrolling.
Right.
Okay, yeah. So I'm like, if there's any kind of politicians, anyone in the Greens or Labour who are willing to kind of get themselves in cuffs while getting people enrolled to vote using hangi marae as a means to get that done, you would get your face in the papers. And
can they do hangi at like a house? Just like if it's not at a marae, can they do it?
Yeah, but then you don't get put in handcuffs. The whole point would be to kind of it would be such
a legend.
You would look like a legend. Like they're in handcuffs because you were serving hangi at marae. And also it would kind of paint how ridiculous this kind of law is.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad that the algorithm is working for Robin.
M56 and the algorithm only now recommended the channel. Which channel? This one?
This one.
I mean, we're going out on a whole bunch of channels, so who knows? Love the idea of a QR code sticker campaign, but people might also be wary of random QR codes.
Yeah, it's true. One thing I would like to bring...
our faces drawn, we could just put stickers of our faces, lead it to us, and then have something on all of our pages, like Jordan's cover photo.
Could put it on a shirt. I'll wear it. From now until people can't enroll, I'll wear a shirt with a QR code that leads people to enrolling. I'll do it. We got to get people to do this.
So we've got a super chat here from Excel there as well. I think a big problem for you is your posts might be too long sometimes. Maybe some more concise post mix in. I think that's for me because my posts are getting really long.
I thought that was for me.
Oh, okay.
Mine too, though.
They're not mine.
I think it's either me or Paul that's the culprit, but I am notorious for my long posts.
Yeah.
Written ones?
Oh, my written and my video ones. Definitely.
There's
just so much information to get out there.
I just love all the detail. It's my special interest.
You need the details. I'm actually legitimately gutted I couldn't put in the whole hour-long interview in the influence piece that we're going to be showing soon, just because there's so much detail I want in it. But I'll put it up on YouTube later so people can watch it.
Should we get to
Mr.
those
Arvid,
pieces?
We can. Yep, we're going to do it in just as soon as I finish doing all the super chats and we have a look at our poll.
Brilliant.
All right, we've got Mr. Arvid saying either way, it's going to be a national tragedy, as in a tragedy for national. And Andrew wants to know whether or not Shane Jones ate the kids if he was being interviewed by them.
No, just indoctrinated them.
Are the children's seafood dinners paid for by oil lobbyists? Because if not, they're probably safe.
Yes. So we have a poll that's running at the moment. I'm going to tack it off in a second. Are people generally aware of the need to enroll before the cutoff date? No, yes, or could always push it more. Could always push it more has a resounding 83% response so far. So, I mean, maybe we just keep on doing what we're doing.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's see if I can work out how to finish this. Okay. I'm going to keep the poll running, but I'll hide it so people can't see it. So people can keep voting on that. I'll bring it up again after we finish doing the next bit. We'll see if we get a different result by the end of the show. Would you like to give us a bit of an introduction on the next bit, Jordan?
The next piece is something I've been thinking about for a while. It isn't directly regarding any of the policies that we've had out recently, because it's something that I wanted to address ages ago. But I'm just really curious about the fact that we have a very clear difference in campaigning in New Zealand, where the right-wing parties are going all out with AI-generated images and videos, whereas the left wing very firmly in the last election said they're absolutely not doing that for a fear of misleading people. They really wanted to make sure that New Zealanders knew that they were upfront and that they were authentic. And it has made quite a strange campaign overall this election, because we've never seen this before. Like, New Zealand has never seen a campaign that wasn't fairly equal on both sides in terms of the tools that they were using. So I just wanted to tackle my concerns about AI being used in politics.
Cool. I'm going to get this up while people are watching this. If they've got questions, pop them into the chat and we'll jump in and deal with them afterwards.
AI and democracy. Because a few years ago, AI was just a novelty. You'd ask it to draw you a cat riding a skateboard and it would give you a cat with 7 legs. Everyone would laugh. Very funny. Now it's helping shape political campaigns, create political advertising, influence public conversation, and apparently even help ministers form opinions. And that's where things start to get a little interesting. Back in 2023, Christopher Luxon was asked about AI-generated political content, and at the time, he said he was perfectly happy to use it in place of paid-for stock images. But he drew the line at using AI to create moving images or videos, saying that that would create some kind of distortion like what he has seen over in America. So he was aware of the danger there, but he wouldn't commit to telling people when AI was being used by his party. The problem is that that line didn't last very long. Fast forward to today, and AI-generated content has become increasingly common in the government party's political communications. Some of National's moving images have even been rapidly taken down after posting. What was once presented as a boundary has slowly become just another tool in their political toolbox. Now, before anyone says, who cares? It's just technology. Let's talk about why experts care. The issue isn't just fake videos, it's trust. Democracy only works when people can make informed decisions. And informed decisions require trustworthy information. Researchers around the world have warned that AI makes it dramatically easier to create convincing content that never actually happened. Not just deepfakes, but entire narratives built from synthetic images, voices, and videos. Studies have shown that misinformation becomes more effective when people are overwhelmed with information they can't easily verify. The danger isn't always that AI convinces you something false is true. Sometimes the danger is that it makes people stop trusting anything at all. Because if everything could be fake, eventually people stop checking. And a confused public is a much easier public to manipulate than an informed one. But here's one of the ironies nobody seems to be talking about. This government spends a lot of its time telling young people to just get a job. We've seen ministers talk about responsibility, work ethic, and getting people into employment. We've even seen AI-generated videos used in political messaging around welfare and young people. Yet at the same time, they're embracing technology that workers in creative industries warn reduces opportunities in the very sectors young people are trying to enter. This AI video from National Party didn't just take a few prompts in a computer, it took away a few jobs from the industry. From a director, a writer, sound operator, gaffer, 3 actors, a costume designer, artists that could have been paid individuals like the very young people National is depicting as being lazy. Animation, graphic design, illustration, visual effects, film production, photography, content creation. These are real careers. They're industries that employ real people. So we're in this bizarre situation where politicians are telling young people to just get a job while embracing the tools that reduce the availability of those very jobs, which to me shows especially a lack of respect for the arts and the people that work in it. And that's a massive industry and employer in New Zealand. It's one of the very things that put us on the map. It's like telling people to climb a ladder whilst setting it alight. And then there's Paul Goldsmith. Recently, Paul spoke publicly about using Microsoft Copilot to help form opinions by asking it for arguments for and against particular issues. Now, to be clear, this isn't the same as letting AI make decisions for him, but it does raise an important question. Because throughout this term, we've repeatedly seen this government sidelining experts, reducing consultation time, and shutting particularly Māori voices out of decision-making processes on issues that directly affect Māori communities. We've seen criticism from educators, health professionals, treaty experts, researchers, community leaders, and we've seen repeated concerns from Māori organisations and iwi who say they're not being properly listened to before decisions are made. So think about what kind of message that sends New Zealand. Real people with real lived experiences, real experts with decades of knowledge, real communities who actually live with the consequences of these decisions. They're being told their voices don't need to be heard at the table, but a chatbot is. And that's where this becomes a democracy issue, because AI doesn't have lived experience. It doesn't have culture, it doesn't have whakapapa, it doesn't understand what it is like to grow up Māori, nor does it understand what it is like to grow up Pacifica. It has no inkling about what it is like to grow up in a system that wasn't built for you. It has never experienced oppression. AI generates answers based on patterns of data. That is it. And if you think this concern is solely a left-wing one, Think again. Recently, the Maxim Institute released research warning about the growing use of AI in government decision-making. Their concern wasn't that AI exists, their concern was about accountability. The report warned that as governments increasingly use AI in areas like welfare, immigration, regulation, and public services, there is a risk that decisions affecting people's lives become less transparent and less accountable. In fact, one of their recommendations was greater public transparency around where AI is being used in government. Think about that. That's a right-wing think tank that doesn't typically align with left values, but they're arriving at the very same conclusion. When governments start relying on algorithms to influence decisions that affect citizens, transparency becomes essential. Because democracy requires accountability, and accountability requires people. The report also warns about what it calls algorithmic government, the temptation to hand over more and more decision-making to AI in the name of efficiency. And that's a trap, because democracy isn't supposed to be efficient. It's supposed to be accurate and accountable. People disagree, experts argue, communities push back. Consultation takes time. That's not a bug in democracy, that's democracy. And there's another problem. These AI systems aren't born knowing things. They're trained. They're shaped by the information they consume. And that raises another question. Who is teaching them? Recently, a National Party MP came under criticism for posting enormous volumes of content on social media. When questioned about it, part of the explanation given was that he wanted his content to be available for AI systems to learn from. Now think about that for a second. That means that at least some politicians are already thinking beyond today's voters. They're thinking about tomorrow's algorithms. They're thinking about how information gets fed into the systems that millions of people increasingly use to answer questions, to do research, and form opinions, like Paul Goldsmith. And that should concern all of us, because AI doesn't emerge from a vacuum. It learns from the information environment we create around it. If politicians can deliberately flood that environment with political messaging, they're not just trying to influence people anymore, they're trying to influence the tools people use to understand the world. And when you combine that with another well-documented problem in AI, things get even messier. Researchers have identified something called sycophancy in large language models. That's the tendency for AI systems to mirror, reinforce, or validate the assumptions of the person asking the question. In plain English, AI often wants to be helpful. And sometimes being helpful means telling you what you already want to hear. So imagine a politician asking questions that already contain their own assumptions. Imagine an AI drawing from a digital environment increasingly saturated with political messaging. Imagine fewer experts being consulted while more weight is given to machine-generated summaries. Can you see the risk? Because that's not diversity of thought, that's not consultation, that's not partnership, that's a feedback loop. A democracy doesn't get stronger when fewer humans are involved in it, it gets stronger when more are. Now here's where for me it gets a little bit awkward. To prove a point, the other day I asked AI a question. I said, given all of the publicly available information that we have today regarding results of this government's actions on the New Zealand people and the projected outcomes of the previous government under their leadership and settings, would New Zealanders have been better or worse off had the government not changed in 2023? The answer it gave me was this. New Zealanders would most likely have been better off if the government had not changed in 2023. Not because Labour had solved everything, but because the alternative we got has delivered higher unemployment, weaker wages, poorer children, cuts to services, and an economy that has performed worse than the path Treasury was projecting before the change. It then gave me links to all of the information I already knew that proves its conclusion. In other words, the AI's assessment was that New Zealand would in fact have been in a better position today had Labour remained in government. Now, I happen to agree with that conclusion, but here's the important part. I don't expect you to agree with it simply because it's AI. In fact, I would prefer that you disregard that opinion entirely and instead listen to the experts from which that AI took its information from. Because AI can never be an expert. It can never be a journalist or a historian. It is not a substitute for evidence. It's a prediction machine, a high-powered personal Googler. Sometimes it's correct, sometimes it's wrong, sometimes it's very confidently nowhere near the truth. And that's exactly why human expertise, human research, and human accountability still matters. If even I won't tell you to blindly trust the AI when it reaches a conclusion I agree with, maybe politicians shouldn't be asking us to place more faith in AI-generated content while listening to fewer actual people. Because when you strip all of this back, the biggest threat AI poses to democracy isn't that it is going to become sentient one day. It's not that robots are going to take over parliament. It's something much simpler than that. The danger is that we start treating artificial intelligence as a replacement for systems that require human compassion. A healthy democracy isn't built by finding the fastest way to generate answers. It's built by asking difficult questions. It's built by disagreement. It's built by consultation, and it's built by people sitting around a table bringing different experiences, cultures, expertise, and perspectives. That's what democracy is. Human beings. Because if AI is treated as official advice, then for democracy's sake, we need to ask who voted for it. I didn't vote for AI to represent me or speak for my family. Why does that get to be involved in government over a human leader from my community? It didn't campaign in my local electorate. It didn't come to town hall meetings. It didn't shake hands with people at the town market. It did none of the work that a human being would have to do to be in those same rooms. That's why this conversation matters. Not because AI is evil, not because technology is bad, but because democracy only works when people affected by those decisions can see them, question them, challenge them, and hold someone accountable for them. And you can't vote out an algorithm. And if we ever reach a point where politicians are listening more closely to algorithms than they are to communities they serve, then we haven't strengthened democracy with technology, we've weakened it. The future shouldn't be decided by the machine that generates the answer. It should be decided by the people who have to live with the consequences. And that's something that artificial intelligence will never experience. Human consequence.
Just trying to add everyone back to the stage now. Pressing all the buttons. That
Good
was
job,
brilliant.
Jordan.
Thanks, mate. It's
That was
pretty
cool.
horrible, scary research to do, and there's actually like so much that I didn't add in there. But it is something. One thing I didn't put in there is that one of the reasons I wanted to put that together is because it is frustrating to me that it hasn't been made a bigger deal that in 2023, Luxon and all of the right-wing parties used AI-generated images of like happy Samoans in a kitchen, happy Filipino nurses because they couldn't get actual ethnic people to support their stupid policies. They did all these things. Then they were pulled up for it, right? Then Luxon went on TV and he said, look, obviously we want to be responsible for AI and we're only going to use it for stock images and we will not make videos and we will not depict real people. Fast forward just under a year into 2024 and they are now making videos. So then there was another article written. They went back to them. They said, hey, you said you weren't going to make videos, Mr. Luxon. And then the spokesperson for the National Party said, actually, what we meant was we just weren't going to make videos of real people. So we're not going to do that. And then fast forward to 2025, they are now and have been making videos of real people. Real depictions of Rawiri Waititi, which is the most offensive one with all of his tamoko on there, as well as just videos of all of the other MPs dancing around. They've completely broken everything that Luxon said that he wasn't going to do in 2023. And it just doesn't seem to be an issue. Like, it's just not being brought up at all.
And then actors campaigning on stopping deep fakes being made of other people. And I'm like, you're literally working with a government, with the party that is currently making AIs of people.
Yeah.
So we had a couple of questions come through.
Oh, yeah, sure thing.
So, yeah, we've got a couple of questions, but Sean's
I think
muted.
Sean is muted.
Unmute him.
Unmute
there we go. Sorry.
Yeah,
Sorry. I'm doing my best not to silence any voices.
Indignantly shouted, unmute me. So can we just a very quick detour, because I've been wanting to talk to you guys about this for ages. The Laura McClure AI deepfake bill that she passed, the policy she passed. I want to just preface what I'm saying. I think that's good policy. No notes, nothing. I think it was good policy. I was surprised to see an ACT MP bring it forward. But typical ACT Party, even when they do something good, they have to go about it in the strangest way possible. Because Bree is smiling. I think she knows what I'm about to talk about. The fact that Laura McClure.
Oh,
yeah. She deep faked her own face on a photo of a naked body to prove the dangers of, like, it's one of the only times I've ever seen a politician break the law that they're trying to call for in real time. And it was such a bizarre moment. I'm like, you didn't need to do that.
She absolutely didn't need to do it.
You did not need to do that. We knew it was bad.
Yeah, everybody was already...
It's kind of like me as a teacher going, hey, kids, bullying is bad. Now let me show you. Billy, come up here. And me just going to town on the kid.
It was actually an incredibly cringe moment because it was so unnecessary because everyone agreed.
Yeah.
That was like one of the ones.
Disagrees with you, lady.
We all knew that was bad.
Yeah.
Both sides.
It's like the political equivalent of running the length of the field. Like she had bipartisan support and then just dropping the ball on the try line because, you wanted to show an AI.
She wanted
to make it body.
Years ago, I went to the field days. The big field day thing that was in Hamilton. Years ago, I went to it, and the police were doing a thing about making sure you knew what marijuana smelled like by having a bonfire at the entrance where they were burning weed. And I'm sitting there going, that's the dumbest thing you could possibly do, but it feels like Laura McClure topped that.
That's amazing.
Everyone's like, wow, this is like a really great time.
Yeah, dude, field days are so lit. Here's the food stands.
Oh, that's so good. Yeah,
the other ones who are probably sitting there going, oh, Labour's missing a stand.
That debacle was hilarious.
Some questions that
thank you very much for indulging that detour, guys.
It's a good point, though. It is a
really Jordan good point AI in the video?
Hey, good point.
No, no, I'm not AI in the video. Did I look AI in the video?
No, but you could have, and I think that's the point there.
No, Jordan is not AI in the video.
Okay. The advertising from the right is often blatant lies. How do we hold them to account? How do we get them to not only take it down, but to correct the lies? We tie that into how they're using AI for their advertising.
Yeah, we really just got to try it. It's hard because my thing used to be, oh, look, we got to make a lot of noise about this so that it gets into the media and then they get shamed into taking it down. And this does work sometimes. But I'm also very aware that a popular and very effective campaign strategy of the right is to do something that is terrible, wrong, blatant lies so that it gets called out so that it gets more coverage. So unfortunately, it is kind of like trying to find the middle ground of whether or not this is worse to talk about. When it comes to Winston and David more so than ever, they say stupid stuff all the time. They say lies all the time. But actually, sometimes I find that if we address it or talk about it, we actually give them the media that they wouldn't have otherwise had. Which is why, it kind of plays into Laura McClure's thing. I think she knew that she wasn't going to get any media around this, and it's probably going to be the biggest thing she's done as an MP. So she probably needed that stunt. And likewise, calling them out. We've just got to find that line of whether or not this is a stunt that gets worse if I call it out, or whether or not we can push this to the media and let them know, hey, this is just a lie.
This is kind of the problem with New Zealand's democracy is like we use a Westminster system, but we don't have an upper house. And so there isn't really anyone you can complain to. And anyone who's complained to the ombudsman knows it's freaking useless. And it can take a really long time. Like I'm still waiting on OIAs that I've sent months ago, And even so I'm finding I'll get all these OIAs. It proves things that I would consider corruption. And I have all this information, all these testimonies. I have 1,000 signatures behind me. But then what? Like, I just feel like we're missing that accountability mechanism.
It is strange that the people in charge are in charge of regulating themselves.
Yeah.
That has always been a strange thing to me. Like ever since I was like a little kid when I figured that out, I was like, what?
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't make any sense.
I always just demand statements from people. I'm like, answer this question. I'm not going to let it go.
That's what we got to be.
All right, another one here wanting to know, do we have any laws about how accurate or truthful caption ads have to be?
Caption ads? What am I missing here?
I'm guessing these are ads that are just like,
Yeah.
you know, like national like to be there. 85% drop in RAM rate.
Oh, yeah. That was incorrect, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, probably.
No,
and the person to complain to would probably be parliamentary services.
This is what I mean, is that it's like something happens and then it's like they regulate themselves a lot of the time. And then, you know, parliamentary services won't really chase that so much.
Yeah.
But we should still point these things out. I think one thing that'll be really useful, somebody messaged me today saying, why are you pushing submissions? They're pointless. The government will just ignore us. That's a stupid attitude. And I'm going to try to be nice to people that are feeling disenfranchised that way, because I totally get it. Yes, the government can ignore us when we do these things. Yes, the government can just continue to do stuff when we point them out. Yes, the government can ignore submissions. But if we do these things, if we make enough noise, they don't just take effect now. They aren't just important now, but they are important in the future. Future campaigns, in 10 years' time even. All of these MPs right now, I feel, because of Christopher Luxon, have all basically tarred themselves. I do not see Nicola as having a role or job after this in Parliament. I don't see many of these things having this.
Like, she actually, like, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's really no path for her after this election. If the election were held tomorrow, even if National managed to scrape out a victory, they're not going to retain any of their list seats. Well, Nicola's a list MP, so bye Nicola. Like,
and they know it. You know, these people are definitely out of there. And one thing we can do to make sure that happens is we can make these submissions so that in the future we can be like, hold on, why do you want us to trust you when you ignored a 90% opposition vote to the Regulatory Standards Bill, a 95% opposition vote to the Treaty Principles Bill? You guys push forward with these things anyway. So if we make this noise, if we make enough of a movement, it'll be remembered in the future. And
I like to think I like to think we're just ruining their CV as well. Like when their employers are looking them up and they look up Erica Stanford and they just see me being like, she's ruining our country. Like, you're not getting hired, babe. They're going to go, this girl's drama.
It's not like Luxon needs a job after this, but I can't imagine anyone really, because it's like everyone's going to be like, isn't that the bald guy that got booed at the netball? Isn't that the guy that like took women's pay? You know? Isn't that the guy that did like weird TikTok stuff during his election process in 2023? Like he's...
actually, do you know what's really, and it's funny that like for a lot of kind of people who aren't dialed in, for what I heard from one guy at work was, he's the guy who lied about watching State of Origin as a kid. That was, and by the way, that's actually a bigger, like as somebody who, you know, grew up watching League, and I know you're a rugby fan, Jordan. That actually is, that's actually more of a biggie than you might think.
I met someone as well, and that was the thing they caught on to. That was the thing they remembered. Oh no, I think it was like
you watched Crusaders as a boy,
Yeah, it was the Crusaders one where he said, "Oh, yeah, I used to watch Crusaders as a boy," and I was like, "There were no Crusaders when you were a boy."
No, you were 26 when the Crusaders.
You were 26 years old. Staying up to a State of Origin.
His track record of supporting teams that failed, maybe he was just getting in early.
Yeah,
that is 5 for 5. That's 5 times he supported a team and they've lost.
Like it's crazy
so
that
much when he was out there going, "Yeah, go the Chiefs." Like, fuck, that's who I wanted to have win.
The day that he says up the Waz, like he's just gonna, his name will be mud out here. But it's weird that it happened twice. Like I like it's strange. It's very strange for a politician to make a faux pas of that nature twice. It happened with Crusaders, and then it happened again with the State of Origin, and like exact same lie called out and found out in the exact same way just by looking at the first broadcast of the original. It's weird that it happened twice. I don't know.
He is just a salesman. Like he just says what sells in the moment so that you buy the soap and then walk over to the next store. Because remember, he was a soap salesman, and he is a very good salesman. I've watched some of his earlier stuff, and you're like, yeah, fantastic talker. When I did marketing, this is what I was taught to do as well. You basically ask the questions and answer them for the person. You don't really let them have any independent thought. You just keep rambling on. This is the word salad that people keep pointing out. And then recently I saw him at field days, and he just wouldn't, he did a big old spiel off the cuff about how brilliant our beef is, how brilliant our farmers are, how brilliant our grass is. All of these things are unsubstantiated, but he says them with so much confidence that you're like, oh yeah, you're a salesman. And Layman Calf Day, he does the same thing. He shines when it comes to those kinds of things. But unfortunately in politics, unlike a car yard, everything is recorded and we get to watch it back later on and see that you are an absolute bullshitter.
Yeah.
I will link this in the comments, but I read an OIA yesterday about Luxon's response to the to America, to the USA, and how he wanted to show more overt support from New Zealand to America. And it was kind of put in the news as if it was his office. But from what I read in the OIA, and I'll post it in the comments, his advisors seem to refer to it as being Luxon specifically wanting us to be more overtly USA supportive. And if you read like the way the advisors are talking about him, it's so clear that they know that he doesn't know what he's talking about. And it's very like, make sure he has these talking points, like it needs to be clear, the legalities haven't been ruled out yet, like make sure, like, and it's just like a list of the most basic things, like we don't condone wars, we don't like it's insane. I'll find it and send it. Yeah,
that's why they send him away whenever there's a big bill in the house that they know that he can't talk on. That's also why he's not appearing. It's also why he doesn't have a portfolio, does he?
No,
he doesn't have a portfolio, which means that he's not at scrutiny week. We can't hold him to account on anything there, because we
can on November 7th.
Yeah, absolutely, November 7th.
Do you know what? Also, he can't come debates, can he?
Yeah,
like the debates are coming. Like if I were in the national camp, I would be trying to kind of get him in front of those, to kind of maybe just to kind of, you know, give him a little bit of practice. Yeah. In hindsight, they probably should have given him a portfolio, because it's going to be a massacre debate night.
His choice.
And actually, maybe you guys can answer this for me, because New Zealand First is polling, has unfortunately seen a big spike in their polling recently, and to the point that even almost within breathing distance of Luxon, Winston Peters is. What will the debates look like if Winston either pulls ahead or even ties with Luxon in the polling? Does he get his own podium that night, or better yet, does Chris Luxon get relegated to the minor party leaders? That's a question I have. I wonder what that looks like.
I'm wondering the same thing, but I'm also incredibly excited, because during the 2023 election, those debates were largely Winston and Seymour fighting, and I can't imagine that it would be anything but more fighting this time. There won't be less. There will be.
But at the same time, everybody knows they're the only team that would work together with each other. They can fight and bicker, but everybody knows that those are the only three that are going to work in that group.
Yeah.
Speaking of that group, who are terrible for this kind of thing, Schmiggy NZ would like to know if anyone has looked at how Te Tiriti and AI work. Te Tiriti protects our whenua, and these data centers that run AI are killing our whenua, ruining water and other resources.
And also, a lot of AI doesn't take into account Māori landscapes, is what I was going to say, frameworks. It doesn't take into account Māori frameworks or tikanga Māori law or anything like that as well. So I definitely don't like.
It's something that I'm looking into as well. There's a group of people that I'm working with at the moment that are looking at ways that we can ensure indigenous data sovereignty. It is a minefield to navigate the subject, but it is something you might be happy to know that there are people that are working on this, that are looking at how to improve this for Indigenous people.
I'm going to go through some super chats as well, because there's a few sitting here, and then we'll jump on to the next bit. Eric Reader says, just wanting the panel's opinion. The speaking time for submissions on the Disability Support Services Bill is 5 minutes only. Is that enough and fair?
That didn't sound like enough at all.
It's never fair. They always tend to also add questions as part of that. And the last public submissions I went to was about home economics and art history being removed from the curriculum. And they talked. The MPs were talking to each other while the people were giving their 5-minute submissions. It's so disrespectful. Of course, it's not enough time. It's unfair.
That's fucked. Excuse my language.
Yeah, I think we all agree on that one. JC and the Pigeon Cats, how about that awesome tax policy from the Greens today? Great chat before with Ricardo on it.
Great messaging as well.
Yeah. Yep.
Really strong to start with.
If I earned that much, I would be so upset, but I think I'd be better out of it.
It's a great messaging as well, because it's curious. The National Party put out a video today where it's just all of their MPs yelling at the screen, less tax, less tax. And the funny thing is that the Green Party's policy would actually deliver on that, but it would be more tax for the
it just needs to be like a response with Chloe and Marama going, yeah, okay.
Yeah. Can I quickly bring up something here? Who is our richest person? Mowbray? What's his last name? What's his first name?
Nick Mowbray.
Nick Mowbray. Did anyone see that Nick Mowbray commented on Jenny Anderson's video?
Oh my God, how dumb was the comment?
So Jenny Anderson put out a video talking about how National is basically posting misinformation. And then she corrected that misinformation and talked about the importance of basically of being honest and upfront with the New Zealand people. And Nick Mowbray commented, lol.
Yeah.
These people are not on our side.
No.
You need to stop glorifying this. These
guys. And
all these articles about him and making him like
a really nice guy. He doesn't even go
here. What is it? You don't even go to the school.
Yeah, brilliant.
But like, he triggers me. He does. He really, like, I have Mowbray derangement syndrome. I do, and you know what?
I'm going to apologize in advance because the Mowbrays get a mention in the piece that I've made.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
Shut up then. Yeah,
I'm sorry. It's not in a good way. They're not. They don't
didn't know you were
do well out of it. But I'm sorry.
I don't want to get rid of it. I want to hold on to this hatred for this family that I have. The fact that they pollute our waters, the fact that they pay no tax, the fact that he seems giddy at it, like especially Nick. I don't really hear a lot from Matt, but he seems to kind of, he seems to just revel in it.
Has his family been doing donations?
And they've been giving $100,000 to the ACT Party. And so, you know, next time you guys see an ACT Party billboard, know that the Mowbrays pay for that.
Don't buy zero toys.
Don't buy zero toys because they're shit as well. They're crappy $2 shop plastic.
Like, they really are terrible toys. And it's all just tiny microplastics that your kids are going to lose and then a fucking animal will swallow. They're not good toys.
Yeah.
It's not even like a go at him. Even if he was a good guy, I'd say, your toys suck.
Yeah, get better toys, dude.
Oh, damn. You're just a giant Kinder Surprise. Come on.
That's actually a very, very accurate description of his product. It's Kinder Surprise without the chocolate. Get a Kinder Surprise, guys.
Yeah, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Okay, $20 super chat here from Spiderhoof. Thank you so much, Spiderhoof. Hello, fabulous people. Luxon is ego and narcissism, the perfect combo for lying about everything and not being embarrassed when caught out. And I think that's something people often forget. He doesn't seem to be embarrassed when he gets caught out.
No.
It's kind of a superpower, but also makes him like the best fall guy. Him and Trump, you know, I don't think they're that alike, actually. But I think in that respect, he's kind of the perfect front for far more insidious people and organizations because he just doesn't give a shit.
Did anybody, it's funny you say that, Jordan, because did anybody catch the Jubilee debate? It's gone viral now with Dave Rubin, with the US political commentator Dave Rubin.
I watched that.
And it was, for those who haven't seen it, I don't really want to kind of steer you towards Jubilee because I just think they have such a negative impact.
Hey, I was on Jubilee once.
Were you? We're
Now
going
look
to
at
track
it.
that now.
I guess what? I interviewed a porn star.
Who?
A porn star, Anna Fox is her name. I interviewed her and I asked her about like prostitution and legalization of it and how like what it's like in America.
On
You did this on
Jubilee?
Jubilee? Like American Jubilee.
Yeah.
How did you line that up?
I just in America.
We need to.
Oh.
Let's circle back to this in a different podcast.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'll
What the
show
hell?
you.
Yeah.
We'll find
if
the
you guys
video for the next episode.
what I was kind of like when I watched that Jubilee debate with Dave Rubin, and he just got demolished, steamrolled, but he just had this, and I almost started to admire it about halfway through. He didn't seem to kind of crumble. He didn't seem kind of like, downtrodden about it. He just kept robotically regurgitating the talking points. He kind of reminded me of those old kind of, those balloon toys that you punch and they just come right back up at you. That's what he kind of reminded me of. And I couldn't help but think of Christopher Luxon watching that. I'm like, this is just like Luxon. And we saw it in the debate with Chippy 3 years ago. He just was shameless. Like, and it is a superpower. It really is. Like, you can't, like, this thing that we call shame, they don't have it. And it kind of gives them, it just means that they can just keep going and going and going to our detriment.
Something you can very easily attribute to all of the current coalition leaders that you cannot attribute to the left-wing leaders is an extremely high level of arrogance. That is just so arrogant. And I just don't see that on our left-wing parties at all. I don't think that's a terrible bias. I think left-wing parties are constantly checking themselves to make sure that they are.
Yeah. We saw
like,
that
in line
this
with
week with the costings, right? Of like the fact that the public transport costings were held to just a crazy amount of scrutiny, not only by the right-wing political parties, but our own media. And it's like, you guys, Nicola has taken $1.1 billion from next year's budget that she hasn't provided costing for. Chris Bishop has a $65 billion roads of significance project that he hasn't provided the costings for. That's without mentioning the $5 billion on carbon credits that we are on the hook for in 4 years. That again, they don't seem to have any plan for. Why are you targeting these public transport fare caps? Like, and that's not to say that they shouldn't be targeted or scrutinized. They should be, just like those other three policies that the media seem just, content with, like, not questioning. It's
the curious thing about those as well is that the comments that I keep seeing from people that are on the right seem to be going on about how, this is tax money. Oh, there we go. The Greens spending our tax, Labour spending our tax. What do these people think the roads of significance are being paid for with? What do people think we paid for no ferries with? What do people think we're paying? What did we pay landlords with and tobacco companies with? A genuine question.
Back.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's right. The road cone hotline. We paid for these things with money, but for some reason it's only tax money if it's going towards people in need.
Good thanks.
Isn't that strange?
It's
the cognitive dissonance blows my mind.
Yeah. They call it a bribe if you're doing something that makes people's lives better.
Yeah. It's free money, right? It's free money if it helps you. And then it's an investment if you're already rich.
Like when they Go ahead, Brie.
It's like the superannuation. Like, they've made everyone have to pay 3.5%, which is fine. You get longer, more money in your KiwiSaver. But if everyone just stayed at 3%, then they wouldn't be making $500 million. And if everyone went back to 3%, then they wouldn't make that money. And then there would be another massive hole in their budget. They're just like hoping that people don't opt back to the 3%. I'm like, your plans are stupid because you're just relying on that. You're relying on people not.
But they'll be gone by then. Like, and that's the National Party to the T, right? They just they just do what works in the moment. And it's like, I did a post on it today and about how the national playbook is basically just defer the problem for Labor to deal with, and when Labor have to deal with that problem, attack them for dealing with that problem. A good example was the fact that under John Key's tenure, he cut thousands and thousands of public service jobs at a time where we were seeing massive population growth.
Yeah.
At a time where he should have been adding roles to the public sector, he was cutting them. So naturally, what does Labor, being a responsible government, do? They repair that, and they repair that for two reasons. Number one, to accommodate the rising population, but the fact that we were paying ballooning amounts of money to consultants who were brought back because just because you fire the public sector workers, it doesn't mean that the work disappears.
Yeah.
A lot of these public sector workers, they end up getting retained, but they end up getting retained as consultants. And guess what? That ends up costing a lot more than just a permanent full-time worker. Labor alleviated that. And of course, what do National attack them on? Going on a hiring spree.
Yeah. These are other comments.
Them addressing a problem that you guys created. And we're going to see
comments I get as well.
carbon credits. Yeah, that's my rant.
These are the comments that I get from people as well. And it's like, wow, cool. I love that you're politically engaged, but it sucks that you're only watching from this season. It's just like, Labor hired all of these people. Right, okay. Why do you reckon we needed those people? Was it maybe because we lost to those people over the 9 years prior? Maybe. No, they're only watching from now. People are engaged from now, so nothing before happened.
They seem to want our public service to be really small. Like I saw an OIA asking Nicola Willis if she believes it should be 1% of the population. And she extended the OIA. So she's like trying to think of a good answer, I guess. And I was like, but that's like what it used to be back in the day, like years and years ago. But we had a way smaller population. So why are we trying to do that? And what's that based on? What evidence? But knowing this government, there's no evidence. AI.
They don't do evidence.
No.
Evidence? All right. Next one, because there's a few of these piling up now. We need to regulate how TV news use chyrons. I remember one that was in complete contrast to the clip with Hipkins not ruling out something. That's from JC and the Pigeon Cats. Who here actually still watches news?
I watched
TV.
10 minutes.
Yeah. I tried to.
And I'm like,
I'll tell you what, I've gone back to reading the newspaper a lot more.
Okay.
Like
Yeah.
an old man, just because they're on the when I walk in and grab a coffee, they've got free newspapers. And so I'm reading.
Yeah.
Like I feel like sorry, yeah. Go ahead.
All good. I say I've got Lumpy Duck here, 45% on 160,000 plus income. Sorry, Greens, shit the bed. Obviously not a fan. So I did a very quick Google on this one. According to IRD data, $160,000 per year as your annual salary as an individual would put you in the top 5% of earners for the country.
yeah, how about you just get lost, Lumpy Duck?
I've got Excel there. Talking about the Mowbrays again, if he was a better person, that R&D better toys. Instead of, are they the ones that are in the middle of a lawsuit at the moment so they can make knockoff Lego?
Oh God.
Is that them as well? I didn't know that was him. I knew I've been see I always you need to be careful when talking about the Mowbrays because they are notoriously litigious. So
yes, for legal reasons, I will say now that I have no idea.
Yeah.
And I wish them all the best.
For legal reasons, I really would not encourage anybody watching this to search up Zuru, Mowbray, Rascal and Friends. Definitely don't search that up.
It's a good non-recommendation.
And then last super chat I've got here. Question to the entire panel. Where is your vote going? And a quick reason why. Awesome stream, by the way, from Destino Cooley. Has anybody decided where their vote is going? Because I haven't. I actually don't know between Greens and Labour yet.
People ask me all the time. Yeah, obviously between Greens and Labour, but my thing is I will remain absolutely open to anything until I see all of the policies. And I think I encourage everyone to be that way. I'm not a big fan of brand loyalty. I think that screws people over.
Just because you contributed $10, Destino Collie, I will let you know that currently, and things could change potentially, usually my vote goes, it's party vote green, and I usually vote Labour for my electorate for fear of splitting the vote. So, yeah.
Nice. Can I pick what? I just want to pick out a comment here because I'm the same.
Sure.
Big Ol V says, I seriously fear that all the undoing that the next government will have to do will mean that they don't have time to bring in sustainable change for good. This is a very genuine fear that I have as well. Well, not that they won't be able to bring in sustainable good, but more that if you get in the habit of just undoing stuff, you just look like a government that's undoing stuff. And that's hard because we do have to undo lots of stuff. They've done some horrible stuff and they've rammed it through with fast track. And so we will have to deal with that when left-wing government is in power. But it is hard, right? Because as soon as you start undoing stuff, you're just the government. You're not doing your undoing. It's not a good look.
Can I just maybe... I will say the entire right-wing political project is to break. And that's why they keep getting elected, because the left have a much larger burden. It is far harder to build something than it is to break something. And by the way, sometimes when you build the thing, it is not 100% perfect. So it invites a lot of scrutiny, which again is an added factor as to kind of the asymmetry and and kind of what we expect in the standards that we have for the left and the right blocks. If Labour come in and undo everything that National have put forward, I'm not going to shed a single tear, because the worst you could accuse them of in that moment is matching their energy. I hope they roll back as much as they will, kind of at their complete discretion.
Where I think it will work is the fact that pretty much everything that the government has implemented has already shown negative results. So they can't really complain if things get undone, because their whole thing is about outcomes, right? That's all Luxon talks about. So if we can just kind of like get rid of these things, and if they complain, be like, well, the outcomes were bad. Just use their kind of argument against them. I think that's our best play. But it is, it's hard. You want to be aspirational. You want to be looking forward, but there will be some undoing to do.
Yeah.
Cool. Would you like to watch a depressing documentary about how our politicians are bought?
Let's go.
Let's do it.
All right. See if I can make this one work. Add to stage. Driving under the influence is illegal because it's incredibly dangerous. You're not really in control, your reactions are impaired, and you can't know who you might hurt. So then why do we allow the country to be run by people under the influence, not just of alcohol, but of pressure from outside sources who don't always have our best interests in mind when they approach our politicians?
Transparency is about just shining light into the shadows. Anything can happen in the darker areas. And if we're not even willing to put just a basic register in place of who might be talking to our government, who also might have millions of dollars at their disposal to influence
Wow, I have no idea what happened there. Everything crashed on me. It just like snap. Everything stopped working.
Everything?
That's what it said. Everything. Everything. How
Trying to
weird.
give it another go.
Yeah, I can give it another go.
So glad I wasn't doing anything embarrassing when we came back on.
No, I'm sorry. I should just. Yeah, it's like this is how much power Atlas has. Like this is what we should be really worried about. What I might try and do, actually, just to change it up a little bit, is try putting it through the YouTube page, because there's a version of it there, so it's not trying to stream a video all at the same time. We'll see if that works. One moment, please, caller. While I'm doing this, please feel free to fill in the space. No pressure.
I wanna. Oh, my head came up. I wanna talk about, what is it called? There's a website called Year Nah. Has anyone touched on this?
No.
Right. I've only briefly had a look at it. Basically, somebody has set up a portal called YearNow. I'll link it wherever I can when I find it. And it is a quick and easy way for everybody to go in and make submissions on like everything at a time. All of the things, all of the shit things. And it has like all of the helpers that you need, copy and paste submission things against these things the government are doing. It's just called YearNow, and I think it's a brilliant tool. And I'll link it in there. Me and Bree were also meant to go to a submissions party the other day, and then I ended up in traffic for 4.5 hours.
I heard about the traffic jam.
Yes, so I wasn't able to pick up Bree. Bless her. I think she waited for like an hour and a half for me to pick her up so we could go to this thing
That's
together.
where I had my meetup at the train station with all my followers. I literally felt famous.
But
so
I think
cool.
we should be encouraging more of these submission parties. A brief detour. How much time do you have, Paul? Do I have time to talk about this?
How much time do you need?
I get 3 minutes.
Okay.
Brilliant. So I'm reading a book at the moment called Hyperpolitics. I'll link this also. And Hyperpolitics is a book that came out last year, and it briefly touches on how basically us four and people like us in this space have become part of the political landscape now. And we just will be for the foreseeable future, and likely more so. Political influences as such. But one of the things that it touches on is how the American bowling club began to die in the late 60s. People stopped going to clubs. And this is largely attributed to right-wing powers trying to break up the American community, because they found that when people had community, when people had family, and when people had clubs to go to, they were far more politically engaged and they were far more aware of what was happening. So in the late 60s, the early 70s, there was a lot of push to break that up, and they succeeded in breaking down the bowling club. They succeeded in breaking down mum's knitting club, embroidery clubs, all of these things, as well as the introduction of cars into the city center where they weren't before. This introduction of cars into these spaces meant that we needed car parks. Once we introduced car parks, it meant that we got rid of what we call third spaces. These third spaces are where communities would gather, they would organize, they would sell arts and crafts, they would get to know each other. And it was all part of breaking down the community and breaking down political power. So this is something that I'm looking at long term in my life, probably dedicating a lot of my time to, is trying to figure out how we build community and move away from individualism. And I know people are like iffy about moving away from that. I don't mean stop being an individual. I mean stop thinking only for oneself rather as being a part of a community. That's the ideology of political individualism that we need to fight against. Sorry for that big ramble there, but it's fucking so important for the survival of the left wing, for progressive movements from now on, that we start looking for more community.
So the late 60s, would that have been Lyndon Johnson or Richard Nixon? I'm trying to do the math.
Nixon was also mentioned in the book as being a big part of it. I don't know about Lyndon Johnson, but Nixon was a big,
yeah. Lyndon Johnson was like the right-wing Democrat, right? He came after JFK. That's, super interesting, because I know that Nixon especially had kind of basically infiltrated the hippie groups and the Black Power organizations of that era. I didn't know that it extended to kind of like suburban
sprawl.
And it kind of makes sense, because as we kind of paint that era as a time of tradition, and you kind of conflate tradition with kind of conservative values, which on a social front they certainly would have had. However, this was a group of this was a time in America, at least, where they were paying, like the wealthiest earner in the US was paying 90% tax.
90% tax. That's right.
And and the middle income earners were paying as high as 66% tax. Yeah. And so we kind of like look back. Everybody. How often do you guys of your political persuasion? How often will you hear, "Oh well, name me one country where socialism has worked"? Well, put us aside. How about the biggest country, America? You guys did it for literally 50 years. Like, the people who say this really telling themselves as being completely, like, just divorced from knowledge.
They're just propaganda mouthpieces at that point. And then every country that they point to that has successful socialism, well, had like a small amount of successful socialism, was also a country that then later got bombed or implemented by CIA for a coup d'etat. So yeah, dark times. But yeah, the reason I was mentioning that is because this the submissions party that me and Bree were trying to get to, and I'm going to try and get to more of them. These are important, and it reminded me, because Ricardo also touched on that, is that these on-ground, in-person movements are going to be so important. We need to rebuild community.
Yeah, house parties. Bring back house parties.
I do like the idea of under the influence is
Yeah. Well, we need to get a house first, but still.
Yeah. All right, let's give this another go.
All right, round two.
Across this works. Dangerous. You're not really in control. Your reactions are impaired, and you can't know who you might hurt. So then why do we allow the country to be run by people under the influence, not just of alcohol, but of pressure from outside sources who don't always have our best interests in mind when they approach our politicians?
Transparency is about just shining light into the shadows. Anything can happen in the darker areas. And if we're not even willing to put just a basic register in place of who might be talking to our government, who also might have millions of dollars at their disposal to influence the government, then anything could be happening behind the scenes.
In May this year, the actions of lobbyists at Parliament made headlines as it appeared that industry lobbyists for Fonterra and Z Energy had emailed documents to the Prime Minister's chief policy advisor, which Prime Minister Christopher Luxon had initially characterised as a low-level former staffer. No, it just doesn't want to work. What a conspiracy.
I was enjoying it, though.
Let's try it here. Let's see if this one works. Driving under the influence is audio coming because it's incredibly dangerous. You're not really in control. Your reactions are impaired, and you can't know who you might hurt. So then why do we allow the country to be run by people under the influence, not just of alcohol, but of pressure from outside sources who don't always have our best interests in mind when they approach our politicians?
Transparency is about just shining light into the shadows. Anything can happen in the darker areas. And if we're not even willing to put just a basic register in place of who might be talking to our government, who also might have millions of dollars at their disposal to influence the government, then anything could be happening behind the scenes.
In May this year, the actions of lobbyists at Parliament made headlines as it appeared that industry lobbyists for Fonterra and Z Energy had emailed documents to the Prime Minister's chief policy advisor, which Prime Minister Christopher Luxon had initially characterised as a low-level former staffer. They wanted a law change, that climate-related lawsuits like the one that Fonterra and Z Energy were actively involved in with iwi leader Mike Smith. In May this year, that law was passed, but the documents that were sent to the Prime Minister's office were not done through official channels, raising concerns about corporate pay-for-play influence with the coalition, which has led to an increase in language that we haven't actually heard for quite some time from commentators around lobbying, and it's kind of surprising that it's not more commonly called out like this.
I think this was a deliberate effort not to disclose the fact that these big companies were in the Prime Minister's ear.
Where there is smoke in politics, there's usually fire. And right now, between this ex-employee of the Prime Minister, the Prime Minister's office, and Fonterra in this court case, there is a lot of smoke right now.
A confluence, I would put it that way.
No record keeping, Wayne, like no paper trail. This is like something out of the House of Cards or something like that, you know.
Something dodgy happened there, didn't it? Like with the big business and the government, or not? We're not sure. But
this is far from an isolated incident. In February of 24, it was revealed that legislation to repeal the Smoke-Free Environment and Regulated Products Act also had word-for-word copy from tobacco lobbyists in it, and how it ended up in there through New Zealand first Casey Costello. Well, that's been a tale of misdirection, deception, and just playing dumb over the years. In 2025, Anna Mowbray was found to have been texting the Prime Minister about her disappointment in National announcing a policy banning under 16-year-olds from social media. because, as he was aware, she was doing the same thing and launching a lobby group for it herself along with other business people, and had already invited the Prime Minister to the launch of the event. With National coming in and preempting the announcement, though, well, he made sure to thank those who had been lobbying for this behind the scenes, thanks to a text message that went to his chief of staff to remind him. By the way, one of those people is entrepreneur Cecilia Robinson, who was given a New Year's Royal Honour at the start of this year. Behind the scenes, lobbyists work on behalf of clients to try and get favourable outcomes from policy and parliamentarians. There's essentially two kinds of lobbyists: in-house lobbyists who work for a specific organisation to lobby on their behalf, and third-party lobbyists who are generally employed by a professional lobby company to work on behalf of a group of clients. Here we have some of the most relaxed laws in the world when it comes to lobbying, and that's a problem.
We currently have no mandatory register for a lobbying company. That goes for third-party lobbyists or any in-sector lobbyists or in-industry lobbyists. And we don't have any sort of stand-down period for MPs, sorry, not MPs, ministers who move from their role in the government over to potentially a lobbying firm.
I'd like you to meet Ben Wright. Ben is part of a group called Lobby Reform NZ. Right now, they've got a petition on the parliamentary website trying to get tougher regulations in place for lobbyists in this country, because, as I said, we have some of the most relaxed regulations anywhere in the world, even more relaxed than America.
Yes, yeah. I mean, we have nothing. They have something. Like one of the things that they do is for in-house lobbyists, they need to register if the total in-house lobbying expense is over 16,000 US dollars. That's per quarter. Outside lobbying firms is reduced down to 3,500 income per quarter. So obviously that's their the industry funding them to then talk to the government.
I wanted to find out from Ben exactly what it was that we don't have, because, you know, sometimes you don't know what you're missing because you don't have it in front of you. And so you don't know what's important to look at when it comes to particular changes and options. So I wanted to know what that meant. What is it good for us? Is it good for democracy? What could we possibly need to fix our system?
In the UK, they actually have a register for all third-party lobbyists only, and that's a whole other argument is why only third-party lobbyists. But at the very least, they have that register. A meeting disclosure. So every quarter they publish each government department's meetings. So they're just disclosing what the meetings are and what they were for. And there is at least an advisory committee that will look at whether or not you're allowed to move from a minister position to a lobbying role, and either allow or not allow within 2 years after leaving office. We currently just have none of those things, and all we're really asking for is, in short, a register that is publicly accessible, which tells us who is defined as a lobbyist, any meetings that they have with government ministers directly, and what that meeting is about. And then ultimately we're asking for a 1 to 3 year stand down so that ministers can't just use their political access to get into lobbying firms and then therefore have better access for each lobbying firm or maybe an industry lobbying sector.
But there's a bit of a problem here because, well, how do you define a lobbyist? Is it different to an advocate? Is somebody who's lobbying also advocating? There's some confusion around exactly how you would define this, and that's actually part of the reason why we don't currently have lobbying laws.
Yes, well, what you're referring to is a 2014 bill attempt to bring some lobbying regulation into place, but it was considered that the definition for what a lobbyist is was just far too broad. So it never ended up going through to becoming a law, unfortunately. So when it comes down to defining what a lobbyist is, we're just two people who just want a petition to go through so that it can be heard in front of government and those conversations can be had. It is worrying to us that those conversations are not being had. And we believe that it is important to define what a lobbyist is. But there are, you know, if you think about it, it could be anywhere from a company which is employed to lobby on behalf of an industry, or it could be argued that lobbying is all the way down to your mum and pop shop who just want to make some improvements to their street in order to help their business, and everywhere in between. So defining that is actually a really important part of getting some lobbying regulation going through. But it's also probably the hardest part, and it's also kind of the one when you do actually talk to ministers who are against the idea of doing any kind of regulation in this space, that's normally where they say, oh, well, defining it is going to be too hard. It's not going to be perfect, so we shouldn't try. There's no problem with corruption in this country, so why bother putting efforts into that? Is genuinely something that a minister has said to me.
So when it comes to direct frontal lobbying to our politicians, well, we've got a serious lack of regulation and a government who don't want to change that. But these situations are seldom as simple as that. We're also up against lobbyists who lobby the public to make their goals seem like the goals that are popular with the public. And the biggest player? It's a global network of organizations that share resources and train each other in the most comprehensive techniques to lobby the government, with a blueprint first laid out in the 60s that involved the modification and capture of our media, tertiary institutes, the loading of government positions, manipulating social media, shifting public discourse continually to the right, causing widespread social unrest. This is Dr. Jeremy Walker from the Sydney University of Technology. He's recently finished a 75-page Senate submission on the extraction industry's roles in public perception manipulation at the hand of an organisation started by a New Zealander, which has clearly documented it's like this thing just does not. It's like literally starting talking about Atlas, and it's like no, bad, so bad.
They
It's like a conspiracy.
Oh, that was great up until it stopped.
Great until it stopped. All right, give me a sec. I will. Oh my god, damn conspiracies. All right, so in the chat, just in case people aren't aware, I have put in links to the petition, and I've put in links to Dr. Walker's submission to the Australian Senate, so people can check those out as well. Let's give this another shot. Fingers crossed. I swear to God, if they had this much power, I would not be surprised. 5-page Senate submission on the extraction industry's roles in public perception manipulation at the hand of an organisation started by a New Zealander, which has clearly documented links to Jordan Williams and his stable of think tanks and the lobby group New Zealand Initiative, and our Deputy Prime Minister. It's Atlas.
When we think of lobbying is when you'll have representatives of a particular industry or a commercial interest, which will then, wine and dine parliamentarians looking for a particular kind of, change in the law or change in government policy or funding that will, benefit them commercially. And so that's fairly straightforward. That's why you would have organisations such as, Energy Aotearoa, which used to be called PEPANS, Petroleum Exploring or something of New Zealand. Taking that organisation as a lobby, it's obviously the petroleum industry, and its members include, Shell and all the big oil companies and Australian oil and gas companies too. And so they are clearly there to lobby, that is to promote the profitability of their industry to government and through government policy. But what the Atlas Network does is much more sophisticated than that, and because what they're doing is that the institutes which comprise the network, of which there's 550 or more of them in 100 countries. In New Zealand, it's the New Zealand Initiative, which I believe was originally the New Zealand Business Roundtable, but they wanted to push the association with business lobbying out to the back and make it look like a research institute. And then you've got, of course, the Taxpayers Union, and so these are not lobbies because they disguise their funding. They won't tell you it's funding unless they absolutely have to by law. It's essential to the way that they work that you don't know who's actually paying for it, and they're then presented as non-partisan, independent research. Of course, it's far from that in reality. So it's not, but one way we might, if we're looking one way into the topic of what's going on, quite tragically in New Zealand, I think since 2023, is that, for example, you had a guy, I think his name was Craven, who was the public relations officer for the petroleum lobby in New Zealand. And of course, it's not New Zealand lobby. They like to coat themselves in nationalistic symbols, but it's the international fossil fuel industry. And they their chief communications or PR officer had previously worked for both of the Atlas Network think tanks in New Zealand, and then he went on, I believe, to be a consultant to is it Simeon Brown in the energy ministry.
Carnegie here is one example of what we call Atlas capture of the public services. That's the person that Dr. Walker was talking about. And this is the most subversive type of lobbying because it's not just done in the relative open of the already shrouded in secrecy system that we've got. It involves making sure that the right people who share the right ideology are in the right place to work with the government directly on changes wanted by the organizations that pay for services like what Jordan Williams' campaign company provides. That Fonterra Z Energy lobbying issue, well, the staff member involved was Matt Burgess, a former senior economist of the New Zealand Initiative. There's Janessa Jaram, the New Zealand Initiative economist who also works as a policy advisor for David Seymour and Brooke Van Velden. Dr. Michael Johnston is a senior fellow at the New Zealand Initiative, and he's leading the education curriculum change, pushing the knowledge-rich economy line that we keep hearing from Erica Stanford. And even Nicola Willis was a board member with the group.
That's fundamentally problematic because these organizations are not there to serve the public interest. They don't tell you finances are. They use propaganda tactics. They're linked to a giant network which is based in the United States, which made the Trump regime possible. They don't own Trump, of course. He's his own bizarre phenomenon. But the whole, it's 40 years of Atlas propaganda in the States, which have made the country more or less ungovernable by anybody except the billionaires in the fossil fuel industry. So absolutely, we should be extremely suspicious, I think, of anyone that has a background in these organizations in any position of power.
And our media is just as compromised. There are people in positions of authority like Luke Malpass, who works at the Post, who worked with New Zealand Initiative. And you'll find people like Dr. Oliver Hart, which is a regular on places like the Herald and Newsroom. He's also a regular guest on News Talk and The Platform. You've got other guests who are regulars on places like Reality Check Radio, while also writing for those right-wing media outlets or Stuff. Roger Partridge writes frequently for, it's a law magazine that's a specific law industry production, and also sometimes the Herald. Barbara Chapman, who is the Deputy Chair of the New Zealand Board of Directors here, is also on the independent chair for NZME media outlets. That includes the Herald and News Talk. There's lobby group and think tank connections that are already in place around Radio New Zealand and TVNZ. And the candidate list of all three coalition parties have people who are linked to these lobbyist groups, including people like Casey Costello.
The Atlas Network is it's global. They see countries as problems within its global its global project, which is to kind of I would say eliminate the capacity of democracy to regulate transnational capital flows, inbound foreign direct investment and foreign ownership, and outbound profit repatriation. So it wants to eliminate the capacity of democracy to actually regulate capital or corporations in the national and public interest. So if we look at where David Seymour, who the ACT Party was founded by members of the Nontolerant Society, which is the kind of inner sanctum, if you like, of the Atlas Network, and he was trained at the Frontier Centre and another one in Canada, where they, if you look at the output of that, it's climate denial, climate change isn't real, let's get rid of any climate policy, and constantly attacking Indigenous land rights in Canada as well, because these are obstacles to the fossil fuel industry. When you start to look at all of the people inside your government who have come from the Atlas infrastructure, who've been trained and vetted for this particular task, you're looking at I think a foreign influence and then state capture operation. That's obviously it's local nationals, but that's where
ideological state capture sounds like an extreme way to influence government, and it's actually what those who support this type of influence network want you to think. David Seymour famously called this the Pizzagate of the left, comparing these connections with a fictional child trafficking ring designed to hide a real child trafficking ring. And Atlas themselves have tried to make light of these claims in an interview that they made as a response to Mihi Narangi Forbes' piece, Trick or Treating. Jordan Williams and Atlas CEO at the time, Debbie Gibbs, also made light of those claims.
This is really just a front for oil and gas interests that don't like Indigenous rights because they want to be able to extract resources.
Yeah, it's absurd.
I think I worked very hard to keep with a straight face there, but
we see this pattern everywhere. We get governments that are infiltrated by Atlas Network people because they are, they on their websites they'll say we believe in liberalism and the rule of law, but when they actually get into power, it's basically what we see is just smashing up constitutional norms and breaking as much stuff as possible.
These groups have access to a massive and sophisticated modern toolkit designed to quietly reshape the boundaries of what the public deem acceptable. We're not just talking about old school political donations for lobbying, we're talking about algorithmic saturation, coordinated digital echo chambers, the intentional weaponization of algorithmic rage, and the strategic seeding of media narratives that can turn corporate interests into a mainstream political mandate almost overnight. They use more than a coffee meeting to influence our politicians. They have a range of tools in their arsenal to shape their opinions, and you'll recognize a lot of these tools already.
The purpose of the Atlas Network think tanks right from the beginning is to generate as much, to capture and command what the media is talking about. And in order to do that, they flood every part of the media with their output. That you have to obviously you need to look at who owns the private media. So the privately owned media will be owned usually by the same people that are also funding the think tanks. And so you also see constantly attacks on both the public sector broadcasters, which have a much higher standard of truth-telling there, for one, but they also have to be neutral. Of course, the think tanks were set up to manage public opinion also by constantly attacking academics and scientists and people who are professional, truth tellers, right? People whose job is to be respected, non-partisan, non-commercially driven. And push polling is a key function of how these organizations work. Of course, their polling will be slanted.
So right now you're probably sitting here thinking there's a lot of influences that are pressuring our politicians to think a certain way or to vote a certain way or make decisions that may impact some people more than others, coming from lobbyists or from external groups that are doing what they can to change the public discourse. But there are things that we can do to change this. One of these things is to get, well, according to Dr. Walker, more literate in the tools that we see being manipulated online.
They will set up multiple fake online accounts. You would have to go and look at the Facebook, so Facebook is a huge tool for them. So, you'll have, I know that there are multiple other entities there, like you've got Platform NZ, you've got obviously the Free Speech Union. If what they're saying is also the same thing that the Taxpayers Union is saying, or the NZI is saying, or that David Seymour is saying, or anybody you can link to the Atlas, they'll all say the same thing in slightly different ways from hundreds of different points of communication. So to the average punter, it looks like everybody thinks this. Oh, it must be, well, maybe I could believe that too.
And according to Ben Wright, just look at who's funding the parties and asking for accountability for who is lobbying whom in Parliament. And that's a really good step in the right direction as well.
If we're going for pure basics, if you're looking at the amount of money which has been given to NZ First, ACT and National compared to what's being given to the Labour Party, Green Party, TOP, Māori Party, anything outside of those top three who are in government at the moment, you can see a huge disparity in terms of funding. There's about, the last I looked was about 6 million, wasn't it? I can't remember that split across all of them or whether that was each, compared to what, under $1 million for the Green Party at least. So if you think about just having those resources available, lobbying parties can have those resources as well to be able to access things. And at the end of the day, you've spoken about who funds ACT and who funds these parties. At the end of the day, money talks. So even if you just want to use the broad basic of who gave money to a political party, and just to help explain why they're so all over your social media, all over posters and things like that, they've got the funds to do it. And that concept just boils down to pretty much anybody who's talking to the government. Your person who runs a corner store isn't going to have the kind of funds and access to reach the government in the way that that big lobbying firms do, which is why they exist. So you can look at the principles and the policies to decide which political group you want to be in, but then just dig a little bit deeper and just see where the money is coming from.
So think critically this election, right? The way that we sit down and look at where money is coming from, which party is being paid by whom, and those outside influences trying to influence us so that they can go, well, look, the public agrees with what we're saying. That's really key for us being able to make informed decisions when it comes to the election. And just to give you an idea as to who you can trust and who you should be a little concerned about, I'm going to show you one more clip from that video with Jordan Williams interviewing Debbie Gibbs, where they sit down and talk about specifically what they actually get out of it. Because, of course, this is completely altruistic. But I also want you to remember when you're watching this clip, some of the things that Jordan Williams has actually done in his organization, like shilling for the tobacco lobby or shilling for Hobson's Pledge, or going using websites that pretend to be anti-Māori being built around immigrant personalities. He's got lobby groups on behalf of local government. He's got lobby groups around sensible sentencing. And this is what he says he does it for.
You know, these people are not doing this for money.
Tell me about it. Although, I mean, on the other hand, I mean, we are extremely lucky to fight for what we believe in.
Yeah, fight for what he believes in. So yeah, scary stuff.
I would have liked to have seen a follow-on. Oh, am I on? Yeah, I would have liked to have kind of seen the rest of that clip with her kind of saying, "We're not doing this for the money." What was Jordan's full response?
That was Jordan's. We get to do what we want anyway. Let's change the topic and talk about how Mihi Forbes is wrong.
Yeah. Well, okay.
That
So
was
just
the whole point of it. The fascinating thing about Debbie Gibbs is her parents. Alan Gibbs was actually one of the people who started the Atlas Network. He was the person who went around the world and set up all these think tanks. And her mother is one of the largest donors to ACT.
Oh, there it is. Okay, so she's actually kind of right then when she says she's not doing it for the money because she's the one spending the money.
She's the one spending the money.
Yeah.
In terms of following the money, one thing we haven't mentioned on here is that a lot of the money that ACT is getting is coming from the same place as a lot of the money that TOP is getting. And that just needs to be talked about more because it's fucking, yeah.
I agree. I don't think so. Like, I have really been on TOP a lot lately. If anybody follows my content, you know that I've really been kind of like keeping my ear to the ground for a party that I think there is a very real possibility will be a kingmaker in this election. And I'm of two minds on the party. There's a lot on a policy front. There is a lot there to like. There is a lot there to like. I'm a big fan of especially the universal basic income they're proposing. However, just from an organizational standpoint, and like there's the fact that they do accept donations from the same people who are donating to ACT and National. Now they have accepted donations from Michael Mills, the owner of Les Mills, who has also donated to the Green and Labour Party a lot. However, that has given me a lot of pause on opportunity as an organization. And this is an interesting story. If anybody wants to, plug for my Facebook page, but if anybody were to kind of go onto those posts that I do about TOP, a lot of their candidates actually commented. And I think I feel my big criticism of TOP is that they don't seem to understand who they are. And if you want to kind of have that confirmed, look at my comment section where I had one, and basically what I did a post explaining how they kind of remind me of a pre-neoliberal version of what National used to be. They were kind of I said, my opening mention on TOP was that they are everything that National claimed to be. and I kind of outlined my reasons. There was one candidate from Opportunity who really took issue with me comparing them to National. There was another candidate who applauded my assessment of Top and going, yeah, we are that. We're kind of the old school National. Whereas the other person was saying, no, we are to the left of Labour and the Greens. And then you had another top candidate who was kind of saying, no, you're wrong. We are a centre party. And they don't seem to have a clear idea of who they are. And when you and I feel like that all traces back to the kind of the moneyed interest behind them as well, because it almost feels like the candidates themselves have almost been played, if that makes sense. And that's not to say that Opportunity are up to anything nefarious in terms of like at a candidate level, but the forces that are behind them, I feel like there is a little bit of compromise, and I mean compromises, and they've been compromised.
I feel the same way. It is strange. Their behavior and the directions that they choose in terms of what narratives they want to push each individually tell me that they don't really know or have a proper idea of what the single focus of the party is. Maybe this is a downfall of trying to be a centrist, because you can't all agree if you're all center. There have to be varying degrees within that. But the fact that they haven't coordinated their lines or figured out what it is that they exactly stand on what positions they have, to me says that I feel like the only person we really know about is Q.
Who, by the way, I like everything. If Q was a Labour or Greens candidate, I think she was very effective. Yeah, like I've seen her. Yeah, great communicator. She's very intelligent. You learn that pretty quickly. Very kind of dialed in politically, has a very clear vision of what she wants. But I put her in that camp of, again, not understanding the party she's in, because Q kind of strikes me as somebody who probably would have taken issue with my assessment that they were basically old school National.
I always get the feeling that she's the only one that understands. I know what you mean. It feels like almost like she's the only one that has the full story. That's what like the other candidates feel like they've been hidden.
She is the party.
Yeah, I would love to have Q on the show. So Q, I know we've somewhat slagged your party a little bit, but if you seem like nothing if not accessible, and so if you'd be willing to kind of front the collective, we would be happy to have you, and grateful as well.
We can always ask.
And maybe you could also speak to the moneyed interest behind your campaign, because don't think we're not going to bring it up. It's what really kind of threw me on that was the fact, and like I already knew it, but every time I'm reminded of it, it makes me shake my head that America, as corrupt as their system is, they're better than us on lobbying when it comes to lobbying.
Yeah.
Like, geez, you talk about the bar being in the toilet.
Also, drug advertising. Do you guys know about that? There's like only 2 countries in the world that are allowed to
us in America.
Yeah, that are allowed to advertise prescription drugs. It's us in the States. And we were about to get rid of that, I believe. And then John Key was like, no, let's keep this. And then we just haven't really touched that again. We should touch that again.
There's been so many things that have happened since then.
Yeah. Your documentary is highly depressing, Paul. Very depressed. But also it's also very confirming, and I'm glad that the information is out there. It needs to get out there more. I mean, David Seymour just blatantly lied in that interview, didn't he? When they said, "Do you have anything to do with the Atlas Network?" and he was like, "No, nothing."
There's actually something that got cut from this. That Pizzagate conspiracy comment that Mihi asked them about. There was actually an op-ed in the New York Post the day before from the head of one of the big American Atlas organizations going, we've heard that there's a few people who have a conspiracy theory about us out there, and that's clearly not right. You're conflating this the Pizzagate of the left kind of conspiracy. That line was almost 24 hours before it went from the New York Post to David
really?
Seymour.
Oh,
Yep.
wow. See, that's interesting because they're a right-wing think tank, and they're kind of, that Pizzagate conspiracy was a right-wing conspiracy. It kind of goes to show, you know, yeah.
So the question I have here is, this is a lot of information that the general public doesn't have time to care about as much as they may want to. So we on the left need to think about how effectively we can combat this, and how we can, I guess, pick what information people need to not pick what information people need to know. It's just people won't really be able to retain all of this. Not like us. People
I
have
think about this a lot.
Stuff, you know.
I think about this a lot because people are like, you post every day, or like you post so much, but not every one of our viewers is going to see every post we make. So I think even if you feel like you're posting too much or like you're oversaturating, like I think someone commented earlier, like, oh, I just feel like I'm, you know, like overdoing it. Like, I don't think you are. Like, I don't know. I just think,
I got
like,
a comment
who cares?
I think yesterday going, oh, I'm so glad you're finally making stuff again. It's like, well, when did I say
I sent some of those to Bree. I got them as well. They were like, oh man, when did you guys start a podcast? Okay, how bad.
Best kept secret on YouTube, guys. The collective.
Right, we're going to finish off with a sticky question, and we'll keep it quick because we've been going for a couple of hours. Kiwi Skirt's already had to duck out because she's got work tomorrow. I'm sure a lot of us have work tomorrow. So our sticky question for tonight: my parents keep sending me Facebook posts from politicians that are really misleading or straight up bullshit. I keep correcting them, but they keep doing it, thinking it'll convince me to vote right. Any suggestions on how I get them to stop, and also maybe understand that they're spreading disinformation?
Send them our videos. Like, I'm speaking half. I'm speaking with my tongue in cheek, but you know, like really, there's like for every piece of misinformation out there, there's usually 3 or 4 sources out there debunking it. And I'm not necessarily saying us specifically, but there is plenty of good information out there to combat the bad information. Usually just also ask them, where did you find this? And that usually is enough, I've found. Like, and you don't even need to be, truthfully, this is something I ask people when they'll send me information about like things to speak on. The very first thing I ask is, where did you find this? What is your source? And unfortunately, a lot of times they don't get back to me. So it's not a problem unique to the right as much as we would like to think it. You know, people in our tribe do have a tendency to fall for some silly things as well. Yeah, that would be my suggestion.
My advice is sorry.
No, go for it.
I was going to say my advice is a bit more extreme. I would start sending back very fake, clearly fake AI, like extremist views. Like, just start being like, you know what? If you need to be married by 20, and if you're not, like, then you're bad. Like stuff like that, and then they'll see that you're the one that's spreading misinformation, and then maybe they'll question what they send a little bit more.
My advice is a little bit in between. I would typically respond by finding the correct information, and I am pretty blunt with this stuff. I do have somebody who sends me things like this, and I typically just respond by saying incorrect, and then I have all the correct information below it, which is I think is a very Jordan response. But I will. This is incorrect. I even do it to family when they send me things like not even political things. I'm like, incorrect. We were meeting on Sunday, not Saturday. But yeah, incorrect. And then just the information, no opinions, nothing else, no feelings. I don't say anything else in there. And then also what I have done in the past with people that have sent me those things, if it is available, I've also sent them other footage or other information from the same person that I know that they would disagree with. Somebody sent me something that was very quite Brian Tamaki adjacent. And so then I sent them a video of Brian Tamaki saying, all of the horrible shit that he does say, and then asked, do you believe in this also? If you don't believe in this also, then how come you're able to separate all of this, and why are you picking and choosing what you believe in?
What they'll
from
always
this one guy.
Yeah, what they'll always respond with, and it's a very frustrating response, is, oh, you know, I don't agree with him on everything.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, but like, and I feel like Brian Tamaki is our Kiwi version of it, but you see it happening a lot in America. I always hear, you know, these kind of fake right-wing thought leaders, and what they do is they try to kind of launder very extremist views by also kind of pairing it up with very kind of common sense things that we all agree with. A good example of this would be like Jordan Peterson, who wrote a book about making your bed, you know, about how you should keep a tidy room. And like people will say, you know, and people will always kind of cite those kind of very inoffensive things that we all kind of agree on. And it's like, Brian Tamaki is the same thing. It's like, oh, I don't agree with him on everything. And it's like, let's just put it this way. The likes of Brian Tamaki, the things that they're getting right are very easy to get right. The things that they're getting wrong are really fucking hard to get wrong. And like, if you are getting these things wrong, you are not a credible source. So it's always a bullshit argument when they kind of say, oh, you know, they're not, I don't agree with them on everything. And it's like, well, they're really wrong about this thing that is very easy to get right. So doesn't that delegitimize them in your eyes? That's my little rant on that.
It's about questioning their motive as well, and getting the person who's sending you these things, your parents, I guess, getting your parents to question the motive behind why they would say this, and linking it to other things that they've said. If there is space for that to happen. I will say now that a friend of mine, who's a really good friend of mine, she had a really good relationship with her mum. They were like best friends. They even worked together. And then as soon as the pandemic hit, her mum met an American guy who was a big MAGA supporter, and then started saying all of this horrible MAGA shit. And now they just don't talk. And it is a thing. I'm not saying that I want this to happen here, but it is a reality that we're facing now in the world, that the older generation is sometimes being so taken by all of this stuff that they are actually just even forgetting their own family members.
Like, and what's crazy about the kind of, and this is more about the American right, admittedly, luckily it's not as extreme over here, but the American right, you hear them kind of bitching and moaning, oh, you know, we've got young people separating themselves from their parents over political positions. We have marriages ending over political disagreements. And it's like, all right, here's the energy that you guys are bringing in. This is just one issue. Let's take abortion as an example. You guys are of the opinion that the left are baby killers. You think we're fucking murderers, man. That's the energy you're bringing us. Of course, like, is it really unreasonable that we kind of see that energy directed towards us and kind of going, do you know what? Probably a little bit too much water under the bridge here. Like, is it really an unreasonable response for us to kind of go, I think just we are diametrically opposed. We need to separate, and it sucks. I think that's probably something you guys on the right need to reconcile with, if that's happening to you. Yeah.
This is the importance of community as well, because these things can happen. And this kind of breaking up of friendships, relationships, and family through misinformation and through really purposeful political tactics. This is what they want. So finding community, joining clubs. I know it's not that easy to do these days. I recently joined the Wellington Film Society. I'm having a great time. I'm making friends. Little do they know that I'm making friends because I'm anti-capitalist and I'm trying to like solve the world. But it's important. We got to make these communities, and ideally, hopefully, here between us four in this comment section, we have started building a community.
I'm going to wrap this up with some really weird little tie-in coincidences for him. That Frontier Group clip that showed up before with David Seymour, the Frontier Group was actually one of the main drivers towards something called Peterson's Law in Alberta, Canada, named after Jordan Peterson. It was the law that said that the government would define what ideology and neutral is. Sound familiar?
Yeah, all right.
Yeah, lots of fun. And it's been challenged at the moment because there's a whole bunch of people who are using AI to say this is what my ideology actually is, and it's different to the way that the government defines it. So it's been challenged in court consistently. So it sort of ties everything through together from tonight.
Fantastic.
All connected. Need the red string.
God damn. Yeah, I do. You know what I would need, but I don't know if anyone else needs this. It's probably like a big like family tree, a drawing that connects all the Atlas members and all of the. You know what I mean? I don't think that would be bad. A good old graphic that connects everybody.
That would be. I feel like our friend Ash Reborn on TikTok did a video. Kind of,
Doing that, yeah.
She did a great video on that. So what Jordan's describing, I think Ash has already done it.
Let's look at that again.
Yeah.
All right.
Shout out
Anything
to
you
Ash.
want to finish with, or should we all go get ready for bed?
Yeah. I think we got to.
Good stuff, guys.
We did
Good
well.
job, guys.
All
Nice
right.
videos.
Good videos. Setting the bar nice and high. Before we go,
next one's up to you guys.
Yeah. I'd just also like to thank Ricardo Menendez Mark from the Green Party for he found out about this interview about half an hour before the show went to air. So he was, a real sport for making time for us. So thank you, Ricardo. To any other MPs or prospective candidates who would like to join us on the collective, you are the open invitation to all of you. So yeah,
Most of you.
Most of you.
No.
There's a couple that I would bet.
I would put I would put Christopher Luxon and David Seymour ahead of all of them. Could you imagine them on the show with the four of us?
But cameras off. I don't like
it. Would last very long. There would be more technical issues than I had tonight, so it definitely wouldn't work.
Yeah,
cameras off. I don't even like looking at them.
Yeah, we have to deal with them every other day. So.
All right, what I just say to you is time to wrap up.
Yes. All right, everybody.
Everybody says I look like Rowan.
Yeah.
All right. Bye, everyone.
All right.
See you later.
Good night,
guys.
everybody.
Take it easy.